Okay, so today I will be walking you through a brief history of Latin American dance, where it came from, where it is now, and all of the cultural impacts that it has on Latin America and its culture. Um, like I said, I'm just going to give you a basic overview of the history, but I'm also going to show you some examples of the different styles of Latin American dance. Along with, I have a couple videos. One is of a traditional Aztec style dance, and then the other one is a more modern piece talking about Dia de los Muertos by a Mexican ballet company um, that we're going to be looking into those, and we're going to connect some of the themes that we see within the dancers' movement and how they're telling their story, and we're going to relate those to some of the short stories that we've read throughout the semester. So we first saw Latin American dance pop up with the Aztecs in southern Mexico and northern Guatemala in the early 16th century, and then also with the Incas in Chile, western Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, and southern Colombia in the 15th and early 16th centuries. However, even though the dances were around within these civilizations themselves, the first we heard about it until, we started studying history, was through colonization and exploration, when Spanish and Portuguese explorers landed in Latin America and brought back the stories of what they observed there of the Aztecs and the Incas doing these dances. And then within the civilizations themselves, they served several purposes. The main purpose, though, was ritualistic and spiritual, representing hunting, gathering, life, death, good fortune, getting rid of evil spirits, those kind of things. So, some of the cultural implications and roles we see today as a result of these humble beginnings of Latin American dance within the Aztec and Inca civilizations, we see the purpose shift a little bit more towards entertainment rather than pure ritualistic and spiritual purposes. However, they still make sure to keep that storytelling and ritual aspect within the foundation of these dances. So, one example that we see commonly in Mexico is Dia de los Muertos. This also began with the Aztecs, since they were the civilization that was in southern Mexico. And Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a holiday, as I said, celebrated in Mexico. And this is where families, they welcome the spirits of their past relatives and ancestors to join them in celebration for an appreciation of their family. Later on, I'll show you it's a trailer for the actual show, because I don't want to show you a 2-hour-long show. But it gives you a taste of how it's celebrated today. And then another example that we see is Carnival in Brazil, in particular. However, Carnival, we actually know that it started in Italy, since it's very Catholic-based. And then from Italy, it spread to other European countries, especially France and Spain, And then because it went to Spain, we see it come to Latin America um, and South America, and eventually to where it is now today, most prominently in Brazil. Now, Carnival has heavy African influence as well, just due to the slave trade. Those Africans brought over their influence, which was like their drumming, some of their styles of movement. They brought that with them and blended it all together to get what we see in Carnival. And Carnival, like I said, is very Catholic based. Um, and it's celebrated right before Lent, which is kind of like a last hurrah before Lent kicks in. So it's basically just a big old party that they have. So now moving into some of the styles of dance we see. Given the great amount of diversity present in the origins of Latin American dance with the Africans, Europeans, Aztec, Inca, there are a lot of different styles of Latin American dance. I'm just going to touch on a couple of them, the major ones really. So first we have salsa. Salsa dancing started out in the 1900s in Cuba. We'll see this trend pop up. Cuba is the birthplace for a lot of these. And it combines Cuban son and Afro-Cuban rumba with a little sprinkle of American jazz. And within salsa, there are actually many different variations. Just, again, playing to that diversity. And then we have rumba. Rumba also originated in Cuba, but it was a little bit earlier in the mid-19th century, around 1850-ish, from slaves who got taken to Cuba via the slave trade. And then they combined their African drumming with the already present Spanish music that was there from the Spanish explorers. And rumba, something interesting about it in particular, is that we saw a big boom in rumba due to Fidel Castro. When he took over Cuba, the fascist government embraced rumba as a creation of the working class, basically showing off, like, hey, look what our people can come up with. And this is particularly significant to them because it was previously banned by President Gerardo Machado. He wasn't a big fan of all that, and then Fidel kind of liberated that aspect of society for them. Next we have the cha-cha, and it was first seen in the 1950s in Cuba, with its roots in mambo and danzón. Enrique Jorrin, a violinist and composer with the Orquestra America, he saw patterns in what kinds of music were popular at the time and what people were connecting with, and he made sure to capitalize on those successful components of these two most popular styles at the time. And then he presented it to the people, and when audiences heard it, they kind of developed this three quick step movement to it, which I'm sure you've heard. It creates the infamous cha-cha-cha. When you think of cha-cha, there's also a common rhythm of 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. That's where that came from. He focused on the downbeats of the music, which made it a lot simpler for the masses to learn and therefore had more appeal. So next we have samba, and it was first recorded in the 1830s in Africa, and then it went to Brazil via the slave trade. And this style can be considered to be a mix of various styles, just like others. And the most blatant example of samba that we see today is again in Carnival. And you can also see its African roots with the costumes and just the pure extravagance that goes on in these parades and celebrations. Just like in that image I have on the right, you can see all the big feathers. She's wearing high heels, just huge and extravagant. And even that float behind her shows that. And then finally, with styles, we have Paso Doble, um, which started in the 1920s in southern France, and it was heavily influenced by Spanish bullfighting. As you can see with the costumes, it's very kind of stereotypical of what you would think of when you think of a Spanish bullfight, with the typical matador type outfit and costuming. It rose to popularity in the 30s because of the French upper class. They had particular interest in it. And with Paso Doble, you see lots of the steps, they're grouped into sets of two. And this is because Paso Doble, translated, literally means two-step. So some of the European influence that we see with Latin American dance, as with much of European history, Europeans, they couldn't resist adding their own flair to the styles of dance that they observed. And this includes ballet, surprisingly. And I'll show you an example of this. Look out for it. In the second video I'll show you, you'll see a dancer. She's dancing up on point shoes. And you can see that's a direct result of this influence. Back around the origins of a lot of these dances, you can see the Spanish and the Portuguese explorers heavily influencing native cultures due to the sort of forced introduction of Catholicism into the Americas with the holidays and Catholic figures into their cultures. And when it came time for Europeans to start moving to the Americas and immigrating in a little bit heavier numbers, they brought some of their own styles with them, in which they blended with the native peoples to create these new styles that we see today. So here I'm going to show you an traditional Aztec ritual dance, which was used to bring good fortune to the people and hopefully improve their prosperity, such as more bountiful harvests, better luck hunting, and ward off evil spirits. Now, excuse me. Now, here is a video of the Mexican Ballet Company and their performance for Dia de los Muertos. While watching this, I want you to pay attention to the movement and its relationship to the music and the story that's being told. and also keep an eye out for some of the elements of that European influence. So here are some questions that I'd like you to just consider. I'll also post these above this video. I just don't want to waste your time reading them to you. Yeah, so just go ahead and answer these questions. And hopefully you've learned a little bit more about Latin American dance and have a little bit more of an appreciation for just how beautiful this form of art is.